everyone, and welcome to the first ever episode of Sickish. My name is Rita Pierre, and I am the producer, creator, and host of this show. In this podcast, we will be discussing navigating life with chronic illness. And so, our guests are going to be everyday people who have or are still experiencing various types of chronic illnesses. We're going to have coaches, practitioners from both East and Western medicine to talk about chronic illness and maybe some of the ways that we can approach chronic illness, some of the ways that we can, help manage it, et cetera, et cetera. So, when we think about individuals with chronic illness, a lot of times when people think of an individual who's sick, they expect to see some sort of visible and visual representation of that sickness. And that's not always when we're talking about individuals who are living with chronic illness. A lot of times the outside world can't see that an individual is sick, right? So for example, me, most people wouldn't be able to tell that I deal with chronic illness because I usually look fabulous. At least I've been told, but I don't look like somebody who's sick, and I don't usually carry myself, I guess, as somebody who is sick, what I guess the world would perceive as sick. And so it oftentimes becomes a challenge when, an individual is not feeling well. Let's say they're an employee, and they were fine on a Monday, and the supervisor saw them fine on a Monday. Supervisor was like, okay, Tuesday this person looks great, and then Wednesday the person calls out and the supervisor's like, but they looked good on Monday and Tuesday. Like, what do they mean they're sick, right? So it does create a lot of situations where there's a lack of empathy and sympathy for individuals who are living with chronic illness, because it's still something that's so misunderstood. In fact, those of us who are dealing with chronic illness we're confused half the time. We don't know what's going on because a lot of us may be dealing with undiagnosed issues as a result of chronic inflammation and things of that nature. And so when we think about the term sickish, it's like sometimes you feel sick, sometimes you don't feel sick, sometimes you think you're sick, sometimes you don't think you're sick. So it's this like, I'm sick, but it's kind of like really I'm sick-ish because I don't present as somebody who's sick, and I might be fine for the first half of the day, and then it might be the second half where I might start feeling some pains or some issues or whatever the case is. And so it's a very confusing existence, I think, for individuals who are experiencing chronic illness, because sometimes you're wondering, is it all in your head? Are you going crazy? Like, you feel insane, especially if this chronic illness is accompanied by pain, and you're not sure of what the source of the pain is. You don't know what your triggers are, and you're literally just like roaming around, navigating life, dealing with everything else that comes with living, on top of managing, or at least attempting to manage, this chronic illness that you might have, right? So sometimes you feel depressed, you're frustrated, you feel powerless, you feel hopeless. There's so many thoughts, there's so many feelings that one who is dealing with chronic illness experiences. And so we are going to have our guests, talk about their real life experiences, with, chronic illness, being a student, being a parent, being an employee, trying to climb social ladders, right? Trying to maintain friendships. What happens when your friends invite you somewhere and you don't feel well, but you were good the day before, and they're thinking you're flaking, but you're really not flaking. You just really don't feel well, but they can't understand you because they don't see the ailment. They don't see your sickness. And so the National Pain Management Association had a call to action that I took very seriously. And that's really what propelled me to start this podcast. It said that more people who are living with chronic illness need to come forward. We need to put more faces to this issue. And the hope is that if more people come forward to say, hi, my name is so and so, I'm dealing with chronic illness, this is what a day in the life of so and so is like, maybe there may be, more compassion, more sympathy, more empathy, more awareness for this particular issue, right? This cause, right? So hopefully, by listening to the stories of these individuals who have or are currently navigating chronic illness, there'll be more sympathy, more empathy, more compassion, more understanding. And hopefully, we'll get to a place where there's more awareness for individuals who are suffering with chronic illness. And hopefully with the increased awareness, maybe more, I don't know, more pathways to healing. That is the hope, because the reality is more and more Americans are experiencing chronic illness. There's data out there to support this, that more and more Americans are experiencing chronic illness. And what's even more sad is that people are experiencing chronic illness at much younger ages. So when we think about chronic illnesses like diabetes, a lot of times we say, oh, okay, this is something, we'll experience when we're 60, 70, 80, right? For the most part, I think society is used to seeing chronic illness within the elderly population. But now we are seeing more young people, more teenagers, more adolescents, more 30 somethings, 40 somethings experiencing debilitating chronic illnesses. And so it's something that we definitely need to talk more about, because there are so many causes for these chronic conditions, right? Chronic stress. Stress is a killer. The toxins that we are, encountering every single day, the toxins in our dish soap, right? Our laundry detergent, the air, right? The food that we're eating, the chemicals that are within our foods, all of these things contribute to chronic conditions. And so as our society is becoming more and more developed, we are being exposed to more and more toxins, more and more harmful things that are creating this like fight or flight in our body, right? Our immunological response is I don't know, like our immune system is kind of like shot in many cases. And the thing with chronic is not something that happened overnight or even like a month ago. These are things, we've been experiencing some of these symptoms or whatever for years, but it's just that it's gotten to a point now where it's out of hand. And in many of our cases, we're having these full on flare ups because we've either, I don't want to say we've ignored, but we didn't know what was happening to us. And again, especially for those of us who are in these high powered positions, we have been, working, piling on stress, piling on stress, piling on stress. And then on top of that, whatever was happening with us environmentally. So all of that stuff combined, has created a situation, I guess is maybe the best thing I can call it, for a lot of us. And so the podcast also, is to be a beacon of hope for those of us who felt like we were at our wits' end and we're like, we've tried everything, because maybe you will hear something that you didn't try through one of our guests who will be sharing their experiences, or maybe one of the practitioners that come on to talk about how their particular therapy or or their particular modality can assist in reducing inflammation and helping with chronic illnesses. Maybe you'll be presented with something that you have not tried before, and it's like, whoa. So that's really the hope, because navigating this thing called chronic illness, whichever one you may be experiencing, or maybe you don't even know what you're experiencing, but it's a chronic condition that just hasn't been named yet. It's daunting. It's very daunting. And a lot of times you think you are the only one who's experiencing this, right? You're the only one dealing with these issues. And I'm here to tell you that you're not the only person that's dealing with it. Because it doesn't have like a look, you literally could be encountering, 5 to 10 people a day who have some kind of chronic illness. And again, the chronic illnesses are not like, they range from like something that could be very mild to something that could be very, debilitating. either way, it's still a chronic illness and it still has impact on our bodies and on our lives, on our relationships, how we view the world, our outlook. um it can be crippling, mentally. And so, we're gonna have therapists, we're gonna have acupuncturists, herbologists, pain management doctors, representatives from the cannabis industry that are going to talk about how, their particular therapies or there's the certain mechanisms and tools can assist and hopefully, I'm not saying curing the chronic illness, but at least reducing, whatever pain, whatever symptoms you may be experiencing as a result. Um, and so I really hope that you guys receive the information that you guys get from this experience. This is truly a journey, right? This is a journey, whether you are experiencing chronic illness or not, or just somebody who is a supporter or somebody who's just interested in knowing how do I keep myself from being part of this number. This podcast is definitely for you. And if you're a familiar, if you're familiar and so, if you're familiar with Rita Pierre, myself, and the many podcasts and things that I've done in the past, media wise, you know that sometimes I can be quite interesting and I can be entertaining to say the least. So, I make sure that the interviews is never a dull moment. We're always, even when the situation or the topic can be grim, we still find a way to smile and to laugh. And so, if you're used to my work, you know that it's always a good time. So, either way, welcome to Sickish, the podcast that talks about navigating chronic illness. I hope that you guys tune in each and every week to our episodes. This is probably going to be a limited series. You're going to find it on YouTube if you want to see the visual. But if you're interested in just listening to the voices, that's fine. You'll find us on Spotify, Apple, what else is out there? SoundCloud, Google Play, wherever you enjoy your podcast, you will find us there as well. So, with that being said, everyone, welcome to Sickish, and I look forward to engaging with you all next time.